Thank you everyone for being here today. If you have not heard my welcome, we were asking everyone to put in their name and where they're coming from in the chat today. We're so glad to have you all here and to be here at this Lunch and Learn session by Read by Fourth. Um, we are asking everyone to please mute yourself during this session, and there will be time at the end for any questions or any comments that you want to add. But in the meantime, if you do have anything pressing, I'm going to be monitoring the chat the whole time. So you are welcome to put questions or put comments in the chat, and anything that comes up, we will be monitoring at the end, and we'll have time for a Q&A. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our lovely Stephanie, who is going to lead the session today.
Thank you so much, Tara. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Lunch and Learn session by Read by Fourth. My name is Stephanie Portillo. I'm the Senior Manager of Strategic Partnerships at Literacy Partners. I'm thrilled to be here today to discuss the vital role family engagement plays in a child's education, especially when it comes to Spanish-speaking families. We know that supporting a child's learning can be challenging, especially when the language spoken at home differs from the language being taught at school. And we know that this adds an extra layer of complexity. So today we're going to explore how we can bridge that gap to ensure that all families, especially Spanish-speaking ones, feel confident and involved in supporting their child's education. So today we're going to explore several key topics that will help us better understand how to support and engage Spanish-speaking families in their children's education. Here's a quick overview of what we'll cover, the importance of family engagement and why family involvement is crucial for academic success, challenges and solutions for Spanish-speaking families, the common barriers that they face and practical ways that we can overcome them. Approaches to engagement. This will give you some effective strategies and approaches to build meaningful connections with families. And then, of course, some actionable strategies that we can actually use and put forth in our work today. We'll have a chance for a Q&A and share ideas, ask questions, and discuss how we can apply all these concepts. Throughout the session, I'll be interactive as possible. I know you guys are eating lunch, so if you're eating, don't worry about it. You can always just put it in the chat. But I want this to be a collaborative discussion, so feel free to jump in with any questions, comments along the way. So we're going to explore how we can build stronger and more inclusive relationships with our Spanish-speaking population. I'm excited to hear your thoughts and share ideas. So let's get started. I'm framing the stage of who we are, right? At Literacy Partners, our mission is to support families in becoming active participants in their children's education. We believe that family engagement goes beyond just attending a school event or helping with homework. It's about creating lasting, meaningful connections between families and schools that drives better educational outcomes for our students. For the past 50 years, we've been at the forefront of adult literacy, focusing on a two-generation approach to all of our programming. Our free classes, community workshops, and educational media help parents and caregivers develop the literacy and language skills that they need to thrive in today's world. When we support both parents and children, we create lasting and transformative change, and parents become their child's first teacher, helping them build stronger learning habits and fostering emotional bonds. So why are we here today? The importance of family engagement. Family engagement is one of the strongest indicators of a child's academic success. Research consistently shows that when families are actively involved in their child's education, students perform better academically, behave better in school, and are more motivated to learn. But why is family engagement especially important for Spanish-speaking families? These families often face unique challenges like language barriers, cultural differences, and limited access to resources. By addressing these challenges, we can help families become more involved in their children's education, creating lasting positive impacts on academic success and well-being. So we're going to dig in a little bit deeper. This is a heavy slide of statistics, but we need to know what we're working with here, right? So we're going to take a moment to review these benchmarks, right? 82% of parents agree that they play a crucial role in a child's education, but only 45% feel confident in helping with schoolwork. Only 35 to 45% of parents consistently implement new educational strategies at home, but especially in underserved communities like our Spanish-speaking families. Also, 60% of parents use digital tools to support learning, but fewer of them see them as creative tools for activities like digital storytelling, right? And these statistics highlight the importance for support in families, right? Families need to feel confident to be able to engage their child's education. And for Spanish-speaking families, the journey of engagement often is more complex, right? 62% of Latino parents report that they're facing language barriers in school engagement. 50% of Hispanic parents say that they lack access to bilingual resources. And then 56% of Latino families struggle to find digital resources in Spanish or culturally relevant content. These are the challenges. These challenges show us that there's gaps that we need to address, right? But first, I'd love to hear from you guys. Like, what are some ways that we've seen family engagement positively impact students' educational outcomes? Feel free to unmute yourselves or put your thoughts in the chat. We could take a couple minutes to discuss how we've seen family engagement impact the success of our students. Do I have any takers? Clinton, I see you unmuted there.
I did. I was going to let somebody else go first, but in lack of that, yeah, just listening to this reminds me of when I was a middle school teacher, and we had it was a Nativity Miguel model school that was extended day, extended year, and the parental engagement was so critical, and we would talk about it as like a three-legged stool, and the school, the student, and the family make up the three legs, and without one of those, you're not stable. And I also think in looking at this, thinking about parent-teacher nights and the language barriers, how often we were in a situation where the student is the translator, and, understanding the fidelity of messaging back and forth, but also the parentification of Latino youth in those situations.
Thank you. Yeah. I really love that analogy of just the stool. You really put it into context where it's like we all need to be a part of this collaborative effort so that families feel confident enough to ask the parent to about their child's education. Does anyone else have any other thoughts?
Yeah, I can share.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Rachel Camacho from First Up. So I have two examples, one personal and both of them are personal. When I was younger, when I was in elementary school, I remember that, knowing that my parents were gonna go ahead and come into the classroom would motivate me to go ahead and do my best. And as a mother of three little boys, I always attend their parent-teacher conferences, and it's funny that they asked me, they're like, "Are you going to come to my classroom?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm going to be there." And their teacher will tell me like, "Yeah, like Xavier, before you came in, he'd make sure like his desk was very tidy. He did his best." So it does play an important role, especially with the motivation piece.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think that leads me to my next point, where building the confidence of the parent so that they can feel that they can engage their child's school, teacher, or academic journey it's very crucial, right? Building confidence is a cornerstone of family engagement. At La Fuerza Familias Latinas, we hear about inspiring stories from parents who discover their potential as their child's first teacher. And here's a reflection from one parent. Can I get a volunteer to read it for us? I don't want to be the one talking too much, but I would love to hear from someone to read the quote for us.
Okay, building confidence. I learned that science was also in my house with so many tips that I get to put into practice. I want to learn to experiment with my son. I never thought I could do so many things. The novella brought back a lot of memories of my youngest daughter, always coming into the kitchen and asking about everything I did. Thanks to your
Fuerza, yeah. Mhm.
I feel more confident about building a stronger connection with my son. And of course, I want to participate in more workshops.
Quote is a powerful reminder of how small intentional steps can transform a parent's confidence, right? Just by giving them actionable items that they can do at home to create those moments of connections, to create those memories with their child and solidify those bonds, right, with parents. By helping families see the learning opportunities in everyday moments, we empower them to build stronger bonds and create meaningful educational experiences at home with everyday items, right? So learning doesn't just have to be at school, it can be everywhere around us. And you're sparking that curiosity in your child as well. But when you see that spark, I feel like that connects the spark for you into wanting to motivate and engage and have that confidence to be your child's first teacher. Now, let's take a moment to discuss some of the common challenges that Spanish-speaking families face as they engage in their child's education. Understanding these obstacles is the first step in creating effective strategies to overcome them, right? So we need to know the problems to solve them. But so for many Spanish-speaking families, communicating in English can feel daunting. Like Clinton talked about when parents go to parent-teacher conferences, right? Imagine a parent who wants to ask about their child's progress, but can't, right? And like, they can't really communicate. These moments of hesitation really can lead to disengagement and like feeling the lack of support and making sure that families have that support is crucial. And that ties into the lack of access to resources. Without bilingual resources like websites, educational games, right? Because we can translate a flyer and like hope that they come, right? But if the content, like the PowerPoints, the handouts, everything needs to be in the language that they prefer, right? It's not just about translated materials, but families want to feel like they can support and fill in that gap for their child. And making sure that they have access to resources makes them feel equipped so that they can contribute as well. But also, there is a lot of cultural differences, right, with the families that we're interacting with. And there may be varying expectations about what a parent's role is in education, right? Some families might be unfamiliar with the US system, or they may assume that teachers should take full responsibility for learning. And this is kind of where the disconnect happens between families and schools. So now let's do a little interactive poll. Tara's going to help me by putting it in the chat, but let's reflect on some of your experiences and think about the work that you do with Spanish-speaking families and which of the challenges have you encountered more frequently. So Tara is going to put these three key challenges that we put out, but you can also put out some other key challenges that you've encountered, right? But you can react to this so that we can see like what's the consensus, what's more important to our, like what's important to our families, and what are the challenges that we're facing while interacting with Spanish-speaking families. So the first one is the lack of access to resources. So you guys can either react, language barriers, and then also cultural differences. So I'll give everybody a minute to react, put your emojis, and feel free to add more if you see any other key challenges that I didn't speak about today. All right, I see language barriers is a huge one. Perfect. All right, so now let's take a moment to discuss the results. We have 8 people reacting to language barriers. Does anyone want to speak on this, on how like this experience has affected how they engage families?
So having a lack of bilingual staff to be able to communicate with families in the first place, which puts a lot of extra responsibility on like the only bilingual staff member. And so it's a lot of like high expectation, a lot of responsibility for one person. So I think you first have to have the staff or even interpreters or something to be able to communicate with the families who do show up or that you're reaching out to or that you're inviting in.
For sure. I know that I've heard a lot of teachers get creative with translating, like they'll put it in Google and put it like use that as a way of trying to communicate with the parent and have it on like having it on their phone so that they can communicate. And I know that that is a huge issue for a lot of our families, that they need more support with access to staff who speak their languages, right? So now this helps us better understand the unique challenges that we've observed and that we've experienced as well. And it lays the groundwork for exploring some solutions that we can take and approaches that we can take. 1 second. Oh, perfect. So some effective strategies in engaging Spanish-speaking families is not just about providing resources, right? Like it's more about fostering genuine connections and creating spaces where families feel seen and valued. Language support is essential, like offering workshops in Spanish and ensuring that materials are culturally relevant demonstrates respect for families' unique identities and experiences. It's not only about translating content, it's about making sure that the content also resonates with their realities, right? Having Spanish-speaking staff further ensures that families feel comfortable, welcomed, and supported. When families feel like they can communicate in their language and see their culture reflected, trust and engagement naturally grows. We can see this also when we incorporate a lot more parent-child engagement. Activities like storytelling and collaborative STEM projects go beyond the academic reinforcement, right? Like it's not just about the child learning this action, right? But it's more about helping the families create meaningful moments of connection. These shared experiences between the parent and the child are crucial for creating those emotional bonds and encouraging parents to take an active role in their child's learning journey. And that ties into building confidence, right, in our parents. Many feel unsure about navigating school systems and supporting unfamiliar subjects. By providing simple, actionable strategies in their language and in their culture, like quick reading tips or hands-on activity guides, right? Like we know that a lot of our families have other issues regarding literacy. What are other creative ways that we can utilize either educational media or other content so that families can feel that they can do, they have the tools and the wisdoms necessary to start engaging today, right? And finally, cultural relevance is like key, right? When we incorporate traditions, like I know food is a big community bringer together, right? Like I feel like that's always the first great family engagement. Like let's do a potluck. Let's bring different foods from our culture and let's talk about it, right? And that's just like bringing pride to somebody's culture. And families are more likely to engage deeply, right? And that's what we want. We really want to connect with families so that they feel that they're investing in their child's education as well, right? And representation matters. Families are more invested when they're able to see things. They are able to see themselves reflected in the content, in the material, in what they're seeing, like families do, right? An example of one of these approaches is like our mini telenovela that we utilize in our workshops, right? Our telenovela is something very cultural to Latino families, right? And it really focuses on the representation part where families are able to really see themselves as their child's first teacher. but they're able to, like, it blends relatable storytelling with practical strategies and offering entertainment, right? Like something that they do in their pastime, right? Where it doesn't feel like they're learning, but they are still absorbing those strategies, those tools, right? And parents can apply it in their everyday lives. Like it doesn't feel unattainable to them, right? Like you can go into the kitchen and start baking, and that's STEM, right? Like STEM is all around us. Early learning is all around us. There's ways that we can create those moments where families feel represented and reflected, and they're gaining more of that confidence at home. And by using these approaches, we create trust, foster the relationships, and then make it a shared journey, right? Like it's not just the child going through their educational journey or the teacher helping them through that journey, but it's a shared journey between families and educators. Now I've done a lot of talking, so let's do an activity, and like this is called the waterfall of tips. So we're going to transition to a group activity where we'll explore how we can best support parent-child connections through strategies we've discussed. In your group, you're going to think about how you're using your power of influence and what are some simple yet powerful ways that we can influence our Spanish-speaking parents to build stronger connections with their children's education. This is an example of a consejo card, which is a tip card that we utilize in our workshops to get parents to engage in those conversations and create those moments of connections at home by reinforcing that they are, you know, their child's first teacher. So I'm going to split everyone up into breakout rooms, and you guys can discuss. I'll also put the question in the chat. We'll do this for about 10 minutes, and each group can share out 1 or 2 ideas when we come back in the circle. So I'm going to create this breakout room, and perfect. So everybody should be heading to their rooms, and we'll come back and share out what we talked about.
And how are you?
Hello.
My name is Wendy Alfaro. I am a mother. I am of an Spanish-speaking family.
Hello, I'm Hazel Davis. I'm a reading captain. I want to say for my community, I've really focused on my own community. In my community, there is a Hispanic population, so that's a wonderful thing.
My name is Chris Williams. I am a reading specialist at a school in the School District of Philadelphia. I work at Gloria Caceres Elementary. We have a large group of Spanish-speaking children and families that we service here at this public school.
And I'm Tara. I'm with Read by Fourth.
Something that we've done at our school, we have the luxury of having quite a bit of staff and support staff that speak Spanish. So that's really helpful at parent-teacher conferences and having somebody who's bilingual there to translate, because there's a lot of teachers who don't, myself included, who don't speak Spanish. I have used Google Translate in terms of communicating with students and families, but sometimes that doesn't work so great. And then I do my best if I give things home to translate that so that parents can read it and understand. Like I do a newsletter, and I have one side in English and then the other side in Spanish so that families can be aware of what we're doing in terms of reading with their child.
Well, as a mother, I think that the most important is that my focus is that my son next day knows what he has to do. He just started, we just came from Cuba like in June. He is been just here for a couple of months, and in my opinion, he's doing great. But I think that if there is no homework, because next day he's gonna face a teacher that doesn't speak Spanish. She only speak English. If he doesn't do homeworks, he won't know next day what he has to do, because he's very clever. But if he doesn't, if he just come home like play, I know he's a kid, but I think it's just for this phase until he gets settled with the language. He needs that extra that maybe other kids don't need.
Well, I'll go next. One of the things that I do is that I'm big on distributing books in my community, and I always make sure that I have a wide selection of books that are literally written in the language in Spanish. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of extra effort to make sure I have enough books that would represent that culture. But I don't mind really taking the time to like ask other people, do you have any? Do you have any? So I don't ever want to feel like when somebody walks past my table that's all set up and looks really beautiful that they have nothing to select from. So I think it's really important for me to represent the community that I live in. And I don't ever want to leave them out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think your thought in reference to your child at homework is absolutely on point.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about how you think that the the teachers can help support their children, or how teachers play such a pivotal role in family engagement.
Well,
Just asking the-
yeah, at our school, I feel we do a very good job in welcoming the families. We do try to represent Spanish culture. We celebrate Spanish Culture Month, which just passed. So we have like banners, and we have activities for the teachers to talk about in the classroom. And I feel there's always more ways. We do have a program here where parents can come and learn the basics of English so that they can use that to better understand some of the assignments at school. And we just got a grant for that. I was helping our STEP person to get that grant to help with some funding for that. But there's always more things to do, right? There's always more that you can do to make the curriculum more accessible, but then also just to make parents feel more welcome and that they're a part of the school and a part of the decisions during the day.
I'm just taking notes as we're chatting so we can report out.
My son goes to Macau, and Miss Aria is the one attending him, and we just have a meeting on last Friday. As I said, we just started, and I think she's doing a great job. She's the one sending me the link for this meeting, so we just met and she's already onto it. So I think that we are in good hands.
That's a very nice school down there. That's like Center City area, I think, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
he goes to Macal Saint Jen. I forgot the name, in 7th Street.
Yep. That's great. I'm in the opposite end of town. I'm near Kensington. We're on 800 East Ontario. But also we really do a lot for our families here. And I think me attending the workshop was just to see what more I could do and how I could better like bridge communications with the students and the families that I work with.
I think for me, attending the workshop was another commitment on my part that I'm committed to the people that's in my area. And so just because they're not African American like I am, and just because I don't speak the language, doesn't mean that I don't need to do everything I can to bridge a sense of community amongst all of us.
Mm-hmm. I'm just curious from the poll that we did earlier from the just thinking about the lack of access to resources, language barriers, and cultural differences, which ones stood out to you all, and which ones do you think that are most prevalent in the families that you're seeing in the families that you're serving? I'm just curious to see what people actually said about that.
I thumbed up the lack of resources just because I mean, we do have some. We have a book grant where we get books for students to build home libraries. So we do have books in English and books in Spanish, but the curriculum is in English. So some of that, we don't have in Spanish. There's just some that's not, and you can't translate everything. That would just be really daunting. But just how to, I guess, enough so that parents can help. I guess that would be mine. And then it was just the language barrier. On the day to day, but I mean, Google Translate has been really helpful in terms of like text messages or sending things on Classroom Dojo to translate little things that you would want to say so that parents can access and be present in like day to day stuff. So that has been helpful.
So as I said, as a mother of a Spanish-speaking boy, I cannot say that I have a lack of materials because we are Spanish speakers, but we speak English too. For us, the most challenging is that my son is only 6 and he doesn't speak English yet. So that's why my most important concern is to him to know what he has to do next day. So those are my most important goals right now. I know that it's gonna be temporary because kids at that age are very fast learning, but so far that is my main goal. And as I said, Miss Area has been taking a good care of him, so I cannot say that I have experience with that lack. I also think that for us moving to here is because we wanted to blend into the American culture. I know that we don't want it to leave our culture behind, but I wanted him to have the full experience. That's why we didn't went to Miami or anything like that. So I am not looking for him to continue with our culture like right now because for that he has the family. I wanted him to blend to don't feel left down.
Well, I appreciate all of you and what you shared. I know we're getting pulled out to the main room again. So thank you all for your time for this, and we'll see each other in the main room.
Thank you.
All right, we're just waiting for more people to trickle in from their breakout rooms. And then we can share out. Perfect. I think everyone is back now. Do I have any volunteers from room 1 to share out maybe 1 or 2 ideas that you guys came up with or spoke about? You can also start calling people too. So in room 1, we had Clinton, Lola, Malika, and Denise, maybe?
Clinton is going to talk.
Yep. I was just about to say, I'm not sure I remember which room I was in. But it was me, Melkia, Lola, and we had somebody had a note taker on this. A lot of things that we talked about were sort of hit on in the previous slide. But I thought some things that were unique to our conversation was one, in considering the language needs when you're building a program, when you're doing all the things and applying for the grants to fund your program, and that those language considerations should be, just base, good practice base layer consideration. Being willing to, practice and maybe be a little vulnerable yourself in those moments. If you do speak Spanish, I I have a little bit of that instruction in my background. Malkia is working on Duolingo and up in her Spanish. So I think there's something beautiful and really powerful if you're willing to lean in and not speak your dominant language. It kind of gives a little bit more permission back and forth to work through and to be messy with your words, but ultimately trying to figure out how to communicate better. And then the other big thing was staff, making sure that your staff has the language needs that are going to be your daily, your weekly needs coming up. So like Melky was saying, their home visiting staff, they make sure that the staff who are assigned to a household speak the dominant language of that household.
Love that. Amazing. Thank you. Room 1. Room 2, anyone?
I could share for us. I believe I was in room 2.
Yes,
It was
Rachel and
me.
Kelly.
Okay. So we talked about how so I had shared how like because I speak Spanish, I jump to translate whenever I can. Whenever I see an opportunity, I go ahead and ensure that I'm able to translate. Also when I was in the classroom, when I would send home activities or anything like that, I would make sure there was a visual attached to it. Just in case the parents didn't understand by reading it, they could at least understand by looking at the visual. And then Kelly also had mentioned how she's involved in book distribution, so making sure that the books that are being handed out are also in Spanish. And I had added that actually plays a big role, because when I was at a tabling event, I saw we were handing out books, and the parents that came up to our table were so excited to see Spanish books, and the kids, their eyes got big. They were excited to see books, that represented their culture. And then the parents were like, grab that book, it's in Spanish. They were also excited. So it was really wonderful to see that.
Thank you. I love that. I know in our workshops, after everyone has participated, we do send out culturally relevant books, and people love them. Like, they really feel represented and seen when they have those books in their homes. Do I have anyone from room 3 who wants to share? This was Chris, Hazel, Tara, and Wendy.
So I was the note taker for this group. And a couple of points, I know we had lots of good discussion just overall, but a couple of the main points I wanted to bring up was, again, talking about the importance of having materials and having books translated so that there is clear continual information that's being shared, so there isn't any lack in that. And also the importance of having homework that parents can work on together, and having that conversation at home so that the child is prepared for the next day. Those are
Love
just a
that.
couple of the
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, actionable items that they can do at home. That's easy to follow, and visuals are also important. Thank you, Rachel, for putting that in there as well, because families, we like to see what we need to do, right? So I know that's more than just parents, but mostly everyone. Do I have anyone from group 4?
Yeah, I can talk for group 4. I think people gave 2 examples of having like the school calendar be translated so that everybody has access to it, and as a means for just getting more parents involved. As well as another example was having the bilingual assistants come in, having parents come into the computer lab to help parents be able to get clearances so they can come in and actually be those classroom parents. So gaining access so parents can be more involved in their own children's lives.
I love that. I know families love to be involved in and like Rachel told us her story where her child's always excited to get their parent inside the classroom. These are wonderful ideas, and how your power and your influence can influence the work that you do around engaging Spanish-speaking families. So next, we'll talk about some practical strategies. These are things that we've already talked about, but we need to reinforce a little bit. But so thank you so much for humoring me with this waterfall activity. And I'll share also what you guys have come up with so that we can, put them into action as well.
Stephanie, can I share one more from I was in room 4 and I didn't have
Yeah.
get to share this with my folks, but this morning I facilitated a coffee and conversation, like a virtual gathering of PA leaders, and one of the principals that was on the call shared, because it was specific to multilingual learners and how we're supporting our MLs with structured literacy. And the principal shared that they're finding great success in building background knowledge. And this is something that possibly could be done with families as well, but through AI. So using ChatGPT and he was saying, like, just putting in, provide me with a summary from Tuck Everlasting from chapter 4 and translate that into Spanish. And it does it. And so that's just another option. I didn't have time to share that in my room, but I just wanted to bring that forward because it was new to me. I'm not too familiar with AI, but I know it's pretty easily accessible. So anyway, just wanted to bring that forward, Stephanie. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mandy. I mean, with the growing technology, we also want to make sure that our Spanish-speaking families have access to that as well, so that they can enjoy the fruits of that labor as well. So thank you so much, Mandy, for sharing, and everyone for sharing your tips. So next, as we move forward, these are just practical strategies that, I mean, we probably already know, and things that we should really just reinforce in our programs, in our when we're partnering with each other, how we can implement and engage Spanish-speaking families more effectively. These strategies are designed to foster inclusiveness, right? Supportive environments, and it's really focused on families feeling valued, heard, and empowered, right? Our resources are the foundation, and ensuring that families feel comfortable and included is essential, meaning that, like, everything from newsletters, digital content, should also be in their preferred language, right? Because how can they celebrate, like, the wins that you send out in a newsletter if they can't read it, right? So we want them to also feel invested as well. And they're able to trust the information more as well. Host workshops in Spanish. I know a lot of us talked about having lack of staff, but definitely lean on CBOs, nonprofits who also are able to support you in the language aspect of it. And making sure that you are also encouraging your parents, right? Parents can also be leaders as well, and they can take the next step in their leadership by being more involved, maybe hosting a workshop themselves, right? Like, a lot of our foundations at La Fuerza, like 100% of our facilitators are parents who have gone through the workshop themselves and see themselves as their child's first teacher, but also as their peers, as someone that they can share knowledge with, right? And also celebrating cultural strengths, right? Finding opportunities where we can celebrate different cultural diversity, having, a Day of the Dead theme, having, just not specific to Hispanic Heritage Month, right? But celebrating them year round, and not just when it's, like a school calendar, right? But really making them feel that we're being culturally relevant and responsive. And peer support networks are such a powerful tool. Our Latino families really grow from community, right? We believe that, like, families, like, it takes a village to support our children. And Peer support networks are huge. We utilize WhatsApp groups so that families can stay connected throughout the sessions, but also stay connected afterwards so that if they're dealing with same issues or needing more resources, families who have gone through the same shared experiences can also chime in and expand on those, like offer solutions, right? So it's not just like you're getting it from a teacher, but you're getting it from your peers who you trust, who have gone through the same struggles as you as well. And then they feel more confident so that they can speak up and ask for more resources and be surrounded and supported with people who understand their needs. And when we implement these strategies, we're helping bridge the gap between home and school, right? Creating stronger partnerships that foster better educational outcomes for Spanish-speaking children. These practical steps are not just about making information accessible, but they're about creating this space for families to come and feel safe, but also be vulnerable. And I love that we spoke about also like putting yourself as a teacher or in a perspective where you can be vulnerable as well. And I feel like that always bridges the gap for our families. And, you know, this is a way that we can celebrate everyone for who they are as well. And having books and language and in culture really helps them dive into and deeply resonate with what they're relating to. So that's pretty much all I have to say for this topic, but I can talk more. But I just want to close out with, what are you guys excited about? What did you guys learn anything new or like anything that you want to reinforce in your programs? What's one strategy that you're eager to like try or take away for this from this Lunch and Learn? I would love to hear from you guys. And let me stop sharing so I can see everyone's faces.
I think encouraging leadership opportunities amongst parents. I think that's something we always try to do, but it's easy to forget to do that. I think that's really important because folks really don't need us to do stuff for them. Sometimes we just gotta step out the way and let them take charge. So it was a great reminder. Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. Anyone else?
I did have a question for you, and I was curious to see when you have homes where it's multi-generational, when you have like grandmothers helping, aunts helping, older siblings helping with raising a young reader. How have you seen that? How is the support different? How has it changed in multi-generational homes as well?
Yeah, I mean, we feel like learning never ends, right? Whether you're parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, right? And you can support in different ways. So we feel that like all of our strategies are like anyone can put it into practice, right? And it's just bridging those gaps. Like in our first, like I want to use the example for our first telenovela where we have a grandparent who is struggling with literacy, right? Who doesn't know how to read, but no one knew, right? No one knew because everyone always offered to help him. Like, oh, let me fill this application out for you, or let me help you do this, or let me help you do that, right? And it wasn't until his grandson came to him and was like, can you help me read this book? And he's like, no, let's do that later. Let's do something else, right? And it really was where the child was encouraging the grandpa. He was like, I'm also learning too. Like, I'm also I don't know what I'm doing. Like, he came from the perspective where I'm learning and we can learn together, right? And it doesn't have to be where you're just learning and then you're teaching me what you've learned, right? But we can learn together and grow together. And that's kind of how we bridge that generational gap where it's like, you're not too old to learn and we're all here to learn together, whether child, parent, grandparent together.
Two questions. One, you were talking about the telenovela, and I'm just curious, like, what is that? And how can we get it to like share with families?
No, of course. If you guys want to talk a little bit more about how like La Fuerza can help support your families as well, we utilize educational media like telenovelas in our family engagement workshops. So we co-created this telenovela with Spanish-speaking families in mind, so that they can see and really reflect on the activities that we're trying to put in practice, right? So I can also share some links afterwards with Tara so that you guys can get access, because you can watch our telenovela for free on VIX. So if you go on VIX and create a free account, it's free on there. And we also have our first season on our website so families can access it. But yeah, I would love to share more. So I'll give Tara the reins, and I'll send some links and follow up if you guys want to schedule a meeting with me so we can discuss how more, like if you want to bring more workshops, but also how I can brainstorm with you on how you can support families in your program as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tara, any last words?
Well, I just wanted to open it up to the group. I want to say a huge thank you to Stephanie, but I also wanted to open it up to the group. If there are any other questions that have come up from this session, any other comments you wanted to add? I did want to bring up the point that you had brought up earlier of there might be certain cultures where the expectation is for teachers to provide all the education and not so much that there's a family engagement of and how education can be a holistic process, including time at home, and how teachers can broach that conversation with families and how teachers can help build trust with families.
Yeah. So we at La Fuerza, like we believe that our engagement with the parent, like, so those moments of connections with Consejo cards really help parents bridge the gap that they're able to use everyday items or like use everyday things as learning opportunities. And that's kind of where we start bridging the gap where families can see that learning is all around them, right? And learning doesn't just stop in a classroom. And really just having those conversations with the parents that it's like, and it's not just important for your child to read so that they can learn how to read. It's more about how they're going and relating to the world, right? Using these strategies. And like, not reading isn't just so that they can pass a class, right? It's so how that they can fully come into society and advocate for themselves and advocate, you know, for their education as well. So kind of really focusing on that parents already have the tools necessary, not coming from the point of, we need to teach you this, we need to teach you this so that you can do it. But no, it's more like you already have the knowledge, you already have the strengths, and coming from that strength-based approach really helps bridge that gap.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that. Any other final questions or comments? You're getting lots of love in the chat, lots of thank yous, so love to see that. Give it one more second. All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate you talking about this crucial topic and bringing it to life, bringing it to this table. Thank you so much. I'm gonna end this recording.
Thank you.